Do you have a favorite pelvic floor muscle? Well, in today's episode, I share information about my favorite muscle, the coccygeus, and what these muscles can tell us as practitioners. Hello, friends. This is Lynn Schulte, and you are listening to the Birth Healing Summit podcast. We are here for meaningful conversations that will transform the way you work with pregnant and postpartum clients. Whether it is a new perspective, tool, or technique, you'll be able to implement it into your practice today. I invite you to sit back, listen with an open mind, and grab the golden nugget today's guest has to offer. Now let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode. And today, I'm going to share with you my favorite pelvic floor muscle. But before we get into this episode, I just want to give a shout out to any of you that might be interested in joining us for the Treating the Postpartum Pelvis cohort. This is our second cohort. We had over 150 people join us last year for the first cohort, and I had so much fun reading through all the comments from everybody who finished the course and got to the course evaluation. I have read each and every one of your comments, and I so appreciate hearing how much how much you liked it, and how much this course has really helped impact the results you're getting with your clients. And I just kept hearing over and over, clients that were plateauing, you're getting them better. Clients that were in pain, you weren't able to get rid of the pain, they're now pain-free from the techniques that you learned in the Treating the Postpartum Pelvis course. So please check that out. It's a 3-hour course where I dive into 4 of the most common patterns that I find in the postpartum pelvis. And in this course, we focus more on the sacrum and the ischiums and iliums. And you're going to be able to help your pregnant clients that might be having pelvic pain. You're going to be able to help all your postpartum clients. And you know what? The techniques you learn in this Treating the Postpartum Pelvis course, you can use on anyone with a pelvis. So men included, these techniques are going to help you with anyone with back pain, pelvic pain. And if you're doing intravaginal work, these techniques are a must prior to doing any intravaginal work that you do. So please check that out. It's with this cohort, you're gonna get 2 group calls with me. We're gonna start off the cohort together, and then we'll wrap up the cohort at the end. The material is 3 1/4, not even a quarter, hours of content. So super easy. It's a short course, and you're going to walk away knowing the different patterns, what your clients may be complaining of, how to assess for the pattern, and then most importantly, how to treat the pattern. And a couple of them come with home exercises that your clients can do to help maintain the changes that you made in their body. So that's actually one of my favorite courses, is the Treating the Postpartum Pelvis. If you've already taken my holistic treatment of the postpartum body course, I would still encourage you to take this course, because it's just organized completely differently. And it's a way more clear understanding of the different patterns, what people are complaining of, how to assess for it, and how to treat them. And I've had several students who have already taken the holistic postpartum body course, and they took this one. There's like, oh, I get it now. They understand the patterns much better. So please consider joining me for this second cohort that is starting in August. And we will be, check out your emails, check out our website. We've got it all up there. You can join us when the doors open. All right. So back to my favorite pelvic floor muscle. I didn't know I had a favorite one until I started thinking about it. And I'm like, yeah, this one is it. And it's the coccygeus muscle. The coccygeus muscle is the deepest, or I call it the deepest muscle of the pelvic floor muscles. It's attached to the lateral edge of the sacrum and where the coccyx meet, and on either side of the coccyx, and it comes out laterally and inserts on the ischial spine. It's innervated by S4 and a little bit of S5. And this muscle is so important for birth and postpartum. Now, all the pelvic floor muscles are, don't get me wrong, but the coccygeus muscles are the inside of the inside muscle that we need to prepare for birth. We have the sacrotuberous, sacrospinous ligaments externally. We have the glutes that we have to get by. So it's almost like the Oreo cookie. The glutes, the sacrotuberous and spinous ligaments are the cream inside, and then the coccygeus is the inner cookie there. And we need to address all of those for birth to make sure that the sacrum can go into flexion to allow baby to come on out. So those coccygeus muscles, the sacrotuberous, sacrospinous ligaments, they all need to lengthen backwards and allow that sacrum to open up into flexion in order for a baby to come on out. So we really want to make sure that we can get nice, even, springy tone in the bilateral coccygeus muscles. And they're super easy to palpate externally because we just want to find the tailbone and then come out laterally from the tailbone, and you're going to be right on those coccygeus muscles. So we want to be able to press in and feel that nice give. I call it the trampoline give. You press on a trampoline, it gives, and it recoils back. That's what we want for the coccygeus muscles for pregnancy. And ideally, we want all the muscles to do that. So the levator ano muscle group, we want them to do the same thing. But the coccygeus I think sometimes might not be on everybody's radar. And I'm really hoping that this episode is going to highlight this muscle for you so that you really make it an effort when you're working with your pregnant postpartum clients to address this muscle. Now, I believe that we all should be able to palpate the coccygeus muscles internally, vaginally. I do not feel we have to go through now, unless you have really, really short fingers. Even with that, I want to explain how you can palpate the coccygeus muscles internally and know that you're at that level. And even with shorter fingers, if you bring your hand down towards the table more, and if you don't keep it too high, you're going to run into the rami bones. Your hand's not going to get past the rami bones. But if you bring your hand down, then you're going to be able to reach in further to be able to palpate those coccygeus muscles. So notice where the location of your hand is. If it's too high, you're going to get stopped by the pelvis. But if you lower it down, you should be able to reach in a little bit further. And how far do you need to reach? Well, let's mobilize the tailbone externally, and you should be looking for that mobility internally as you have your finger in on either side of the rectum. So the tailbone ideally should be underneath the rectum. So if you're just on either side of the rectum, you should be looking for that mobility. Then when you find it and you feel it, you know you're at the level of the coccygeus muscle. And that's how I palpate the coccygeus on one side, go up and over the rectum, and palpate it on the other side as well. And we want nice, normal, springy tone for pregnancy, for labor, so baby can come on out. Now, postpartum, what I love about this muscle is that it can really give me a good sense of what's going on with the sacrum. If I find bilateral pelvic floor muscle tension in the coccygeus muscles, then that is a sign to me that the sacrum is stuck in flexion. So the coccygeus muscles are being taut, they're being lengthened, and they're going to have increased tone. So we want to help bring this, we want to help bring the tailbone and the lower sacrum more anteriorly to bring it into extension, and that should help decrease the tone of the pelvic floor muscles. And this is why I am such a huge, huge fan of addressing the pelvic bones prior to doing any work with the pelvic floor muscles. The pelvic floor muscles are a huge, I think really all the muscles in our body are just giving us information of where there may be problems going on in our body. And it's not always the muscles issue. It's not always the muscle's fault or problem. The muscles may be reacting to something else. And that's why I want you to get more curious with your palpation of the muscles, and don't just blame the muscles. Oh, this paraspinal muscle's tight. We just need to, hammer it until we get it to release. No, the pelvic floor, the paraspinal muscle might be tight because actually the psoas muscle is tight. The psoas muscle may be tight because the kidney is toast down or it's fallen down a little bit and it's activating it. And this is where we need to become more aware of why the muscles are tight in the first place and get to the bottom line of it versus just blaming the muscle and going right after the muscle and making it try to release, like forcing it to release. If you've studied or listened to me for a while, you know that I never want to force a release, and I don't want any of you out there to force a release of any tissue, because the tissue is doing it for a reason. So figure out what that reason is, and then the muscles just give up. So if you have bilateral coccygeus tension in the pelvic floor muscles, and you need to be thinking that that sacrum might be stuck in flexion. And if you correct the flexion, then you shorten those pelvic floor muscles, the coccygeus muscles, and then they can relax. Now, I have to say that this is something that sometimes I miss externally on my clients, and I don't find it until I go internally, because I always, 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 always 200% start with working with the pelvic bones externally first before doing any intravaginal work. And I really hope that that's your protocol too. The pelvic floor muscle, the bones of the pelvis need to be addressed prior to doing any intravaginal work. But sometimes I go intravaginally and I find that there's coccygeus muscle bilateral tension in there. And I'm like, oops, I missed sacral flexion. So I take my hand out, I will then turn my clients prone, and I will work on bringing the sacrum back to midline. They may be supine, and I'm just really working on trying to bring the sacrum up towards the pubic bone. And it's super helpful once you do that to then go back in and now take a look at your coccygeus muscle tension, because it's going to be less. And I also am a huge fan and teach how to use the Schulte hold, which is a hand placement on the pelvis to work with the pelvic floor muscles together, so that we can get the pelvic floor muscles to release effectively for our clients without having to offer too much pressure internally. We can use the pressure on the bones to help make that happen, so that the muscles just melt automatically without having to put a lot of tension on it. So you can learn about the Schulte hold in both the holistic treatment of the postpartum body and pregnant body courses. The other piece to the coccygeus muscles is that, so bilateral tension means sacral flexion, but a unilateral tension of the pelvic floor muscles, of the coccygeus muscles, could mean that the sacrum is in a more sheared position or side bent position. And this is where the tailbone's off to one side, the sacral base is going to be higher on that side. There's going to be decreased mobility in the sacroiliac joint, and this side coccygeus muscle is going to be super tight. And when I notice that, then I know I need to do the sacral shear, and that's what I teach in the Treating the Postpartum Pelvis course. You can learn how to do that there, and that helps correct the coccygeus muscle tension on that one side as well. So it's just super important that you understand that the pelvic floor muscles really are just at the effect of the pelvic bones, and that when we address the pelvic bones, then the pelvic floor muscles can just kind of relax and let go. And if the bones are good and the pelvic floor muscles have tension, then there's a deeper issue at play, and we need to address that with our clients then as well. So the pelvic floor muscles, remember, they're all about safety and security. And if a person is not feeling safe in their body, they're not feeling safe in their life, they're going to have increased tension in their pelvic floor muscles. And that's something that we can help our clients learn how to work on releasing and letting go. But in order to do that, they got to feel safe. And so they may need to work with counselors, psychotherapist, or someone, or work on limiting beliefs that make them feel like they're not safe. There's so much that we can do to help support our clients in keeping these pelvic floor muscles relaxed, especially as we go into labor, and then learning how to get the pelvic floor muscles to relax or come back to their normal tone after birth by getting the bones back into their proper place. If you do not address the pelvic bones prior to doing intravaginal work, and you find all this tension in the muscles, and you work really, really hard to get the pelvic floor muscles to release, and their pelvic pain increases, you have just released the stability of this pelvis. Because when this pelvis is in this open birthing pattern, it is a more unstable position. So those pelvic floor muscles are hanging on for dear life, trying to keep the person stable. And by releasing the tension in the muscles without addressing the bony positions of the pelvis, then you are making them more unstable, which increases their pain. If you've had that happen, know that you need to address these positions of the bones, and you can learn how to do so in Treating the Postpartum Pelvis course. So please check that out, join the cohort. Let me help support you in this cohort in getting through the material and learning it so that you can start applying this material right away and getting better results with your clients. Okay, so I would love to have you join us for the Treating the Postpartum Pelvis cohort. It's starting in August. Please check it out and check out the show notes. There will be a link to the page to learn more about the cohort. Okay. Thank you so much for listening in, everybody. Check out those coccygeus muscles. Let me know what you find. And here is to smoother births and faster recovery. See y'all in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Today's podcast was brought to you by the Institute for Birth Healing. To discover more, visit instituteforbirthhealing.com. To claim $50 off of any online course, use coupon code PODCAST50 at checkout. Till next time, I'm Lynn Schulte, founder of the Institute for Birth Healing.